All right, people, we is back again. One more again. We just trying to investigate and see what is going on out here. So, I was on Facebook a little earlier, and one of them tellers was talking about I don't even know if it's a teller. It was just misguided individual said that Hebrew was an Afro-Asiatic language. I had to. I know it's not. First of all, but there's an implication that there's a connectedness to Africa, which, you know, I ain't got no qualms with Africa or the Africans. They just their own people. And that's a different lot than this lot over here. So we'll continue. But they do try to associate, all things with their cool. All things with their man-made holy land. So, of course, it's going to give me the Hebrew is a definitively Afro-Asiatic language. It belongs to the Semitic branch of the Afro-Asiatic family, specifically within the Western Semitic group, alongside ancient languages like Phoenician, Moabite, and Aramaic. Linguistics classify it this way based on extensive shared vocabulary, grammatical structures such as the root and pattern system, and phonological features that link it to other languages in northern Africa, Southwest Asia, and including Arabic, ancient Egypt, and Berber. Okay. The Afro-Asiatic connection. Hebrew is categorized as an Afro-Asiatic because it shares a common ancestral language, Proto-Afro-Asiatic, which linguistics estimate was spoken roughly 15,000 to 20,000 years in northeastern Africa. The evidence for this classification includes morphology. Hebrew uses a trisconsonantal root system. Examples: KTB for writing, common to Semitic and other Afro-Asiatic languages. Lexical cognates. Core vocabulary in Hebrew shares roots with ancient Egyptian, Cushic, and Chadic languages. What about Chad? Historical continuity. Written records of Hebrew date back to the 10th century BC, Paleo Hebrew, showing a clear evolution from Canaanite. So, what they're saying is the Hebrew came from the Canaanite dialect spoken in the Levant. The Hebrew evolved from the Canaanite language. Huh. A region deeply connected to both African and Asian linguistic zones. The Decalogue Stone controversy. The premise that Hebrew has Paleolithic roots in America based on the Decalogue Stone is not supported by mainstream archaeology, linguistics, or history. The Decalogue Stone is an artifact allegedly found in Newark, Ohio in 1860, featuring inscriptions of the Ten Commandments in Hebrew, while some alternative theories cite this as proof of pre-Columbian transoceanic contact or ancient American Hebrew roots. The scientific consensus rejects this claim for several reasons. Lack of context. The stone was found without reliable stratigraphic context or associated Paleolithic artifacts that would date it to the Stone Age. Linguistic anachronism. The Hebrew script and language on the stone correspond to much later periods, post Exilic or medieval styles, rather than any form of Hebrew that could have existed in the Paleolithic era, which predates the development of writing by tens of thousands of years. Now you see, as they're trying to say that the stone found in Newark, Ohio is not legitimate, not official, and you seeing what they are using to come up with their reasoning to not qualify or quantify. It's not quantify, but to not qualify this as legit. Now they're using, what are they using? They talking about Stone Age, stratigraphic. Come on, man. They coming up with all this bullshit. All these scientific words. This bullshit scientific words and terms more akin to quackery. Now, they talking about the Hebrew script and the language in the stone correspond to much later periods. How they know? How they know? Who are the people that's assessing this stuff, doing the scientific tests? Like, they're just asserting that those are post exilic, yeah, that's the word, exilic or medieval styles. Just saying it. You ain't bringing no documentation to the table. You just, oh yeah, that ain't the Ten Commandments. That's not as old as you say it is. Hoax indicators. Many historians and archaeologists consider the new work holy stones, including the Decalogue stone, to be a 19th century hoax, possibly created to confuse debates about the origins of. They always put Native Americans in. They never put American Indians. If you don't use the right terms, you're going to lead to confusion. But they do this intentionally. About the origins of Native Americans. We know where the Native Americans come from. They come from fucking Siberia. But we're talking about American Indians to support religious narratives of that time. Consequently, there is no evidence that Hebrew was spoken in Paleolithic America, and the Decalogue stone does not alter the classification of Hebrew as an Afro-Asiatic language or originating in the Near East. Scientific consensus. I ain't gonna read all this. Scientific consensus is saying that this is what they want us to believe. The Middle East, the Holy Land, is in fucking the near Africa, near Israel, Egypt, Iran, Saudi Arabia. That whole desert out there is the Holy Land. All that dirt and rocks and dry earth is the Holy Land. It's the Promised Land. That's what they're saying it is. So we can skip all this because we can talk about the Levant and all that shit. Nigga, fuck you in that Levant shit. So because while I was doing this, I was getting heated because I don't like to be lied to, but you gonna keep lying to me. And this is where, as a UB says, the fuckery is. So I asked the question, are you expecting me to omit the many Paleo-Hebrew artifacts I've seen for academic gatekeeping of information I've never combed over myself? More lies. No, you are not being asked to omit artifacts due to gatekeeping, but rather because the specific artifacts you are likely encounter, such as the Newark Holy Stones, the Back Creek Stone, the Lost Looney's Decalogue, have been extensively examined by archaeological, God, that word, linguists, why can't I say these words? Geologists, and failed to meet that criteria for authenticity. I gotta take a drink of water. Hold on, people. My mouth dry. I can't say my words right. I'm looking silly on this video. Hold on. Let me take a sip. Take a sip of some H2O. But you can read along if you like. Hold on. Whole lot of water. All right. The scientific community community does not reject these items to hide information. On the contrary, they are often studied in great detail. The consensus that they are 19th century hoax or misidentifications is based on concrete evidence. Now, who was the niggas that's doing all this extensive research? Who paid them niggas? We gonna get to that because I'm gonna ask. Nigga, I've seen the lectures by Steve Coakley. I know. Follow the money. All right. The scientific. I think I read that. Anachronistic scripts. The Paleo Hebrew on stones like the Decalogue stone and the Bat Creek stone often matches letter forms from 19th century Masonic cipher books or contemporary Hebrew fonts rather than authentic ancient scripts. For instance, researchers identified the source of the Bat Creek inscription as an illustration in an 1870 Masonic cyclopedia. I gotta look into that shit. See if we can get a hold of that. Tool marks. Forensic geological analysis of the Newark holy stones revealed grindy marks consistent with 19th century steel tools, not ancient stone working methods. Now, in the just above, I just read that they didn't have languages. So what is it? They wasn't reading and writing, because they made it seem before that them people wasn't reading and writing, even though God gave them books, and it was clearly shown that books existed long time ago. So they're making this I guess this caveman thing, the Stone Age and all that stuff. That's the Flintstones. That's bullshit. So this is I didn't catch it, but this is a contradiction within itself. Lack of context. Authentic artifacts are found in undisturbed stratigraphic layers with datable organic material. Many of these Hebrew stones were found loose in disturbed soil or without any associated ancient Hebrew material culture, pottery, housing, burials that would indicate a settled population. What? So, for the artifacts to be... See, this is the bullshit that they do when they plant... I'm reading this shit. I'm like, hold on. This is the bullshit that they do when they take up artifacts that was found in the Americas and they drop them off in the Middle East. They group them all together. And they're saying that the fact that these stones weren't found all together, or these artifacts weren't found all together with other artifacts, it dismisses its authenticity. This is fucking bullshit, artists. I watched wrestling for all my life. I know it'll work. Linguistic errors. The inscriptions often contain grammatical errors or phrasing that a native ancient Hebrew speaker could not make, but which a 19th century amateur familiar with the Bible might commit. How the fuck did... These niggas is off the hook with their lies and their omissions, while figures like Cyrus Gordon or Scott Walter have occasionally argued for the authenticity of specific items like the Bat Creek stone or the Newark stones. Their views are considered fringe because they rely on isolated interpretations that contradict the overwhelming physical and historical evidence of forgery. Where is the evidence of forgery? You're just saying it's forgery, but haven't provided any evidence other than saying that it wasn't found in a group of other Hebrew artifacts and the stratigraph, whatever that word is, the earth that it was found in isn't Hebrew earth. That's what the niggas said before. That's what we read earlier before. So this shit ain't making no sense. The gatekeeper you perceive is actually the peer review process. Now, I'm gonna finish this. The gatekeeper you perceive is actually the peer review process, filtering out demonstrable fakes to preserve the integrity of historical record. Hold on. Hey, so we back. So they love the peer review stuff. So I just came across this Substack. This is Robert Maxwell, father of Ghislaine Maxwell, involved in a lot of shady shit. But yeah, this is the one who controls, or I guess controls, publishes a lot of the academic peer review stuff. So when people talk to me about peer reviewed and all that stuff, mess me with it, cause got me fucked up. You niggas got me fucked up. Shout out Project Pat. So how would people in the 19th century create a language they've never seen, and why is there such a consensus of rejection of artifacts found in Americas for artifacts found in other parts of the world? Who's to say those items aren't hoaxes? Who's to say they're not hoaxes? Your question addresses two main points: the mechanism of 19th century forgery and the perceived double standard in artifact acceptance. How 19th century forgers created ancient scripts. It's going to give you a whole bunch of bullshit. But this is interesting. Robert McCoy General History Encyclopedia and Dictionary of Freemason. You got to dig into this. I want to see what's up with that book. Let's see and get into it. Fuck it. We surfing the wave, I guess. Let's do a little web search, see what we come up with. Okay. Check it out. See the price. Oh, ain't that bad. Me can get a free copy somewhere. Let's see if they got a PDF. Let's see if you got the PDF. Let's see if you got the PDF. We ain't paying for shit in it. You dig. PDF. Y'all just bear with me. That's what I'm talking about, baby. Y'all just gonna have to bear with me, because we gonna have to download this. I ain't gonna get into it right now, but I want y'all to see, how I operate, how I move, how we gather information. Don't be afraid to. Don't be afraid. I know y'all gonna be upset with me. Oh, there it is. We gonna get back. All right. The Decalogue Stone, found by David Wyrick, features a mix of letter forms available in 19th century biblical commentaries and the Encyclopedia Americana. So the people who forged these things wrote books, like encyclopedias, like, all right. But they're forgers. They're hoaxes. All right. Motivation. These were not random acts, but were often driven by the intense 19th century debate over, and they always interject Native Americans. They never say American Indians. Proving a connection to the lost tribes of Israel was a popular way to argue for the humanity and biblical significance of indigenous people during the Civil War era, providing a strong motive for fabrication. Why the consensus rejects American Hebrew artifacts. The rejection is not based on geography, America versus old world, but on forensic evidence and contextual consistency. The standard applied to American artifacts is the same one applied globally. Old world artifacts are also rejected if they fail these tests. Authentic old world Hebrew artifacts are found in stratified layers of. Oh yeah, this is where they put the. They find them in America, take them to the Middle East, bury them, come back a couple days later, dig them up, and say, "Oh, look at what we found! Look at these stratified layers that we found these pottery and tools and this is all fucking bullshit." But I guess their dirt is better than this American dirt. The dirt over there is more valid, more credible. That hard dirt, that dried up dirt, that dry earth is better over there than it's good quality earth over here. I don't get it, but I get it. Material analysis and scientific testing often reveals modern tool marks. For example, the Newark Decalogue stone shows grinding patterns consistent with 19th century. You said this already. You come up, and the thing is, they're just going to keep reiterating the same shit over and over again. Linguistic anachronisms. See, the Rosetta Stones, you beat and talked about this. The Rosetta Stone, like, nigga, a lot of this shit they made themselves. Hold on. Oh, we back. Now, this is Brigido Lara. Brigido Lara is a Mexican artist and ex-forager of pre-Columbian antiques. Laura claims to have created perhaps as many as 40,000 pieces of forged pre-Columbian pottery. Yes, Edward S. Curtis is known for staging many of his photographs of Native Americans. So, you see what's going on? They can create any picture they want to create. They can do it, baby. They can do it. They just don't want to be caught. And that's what's going on. They're in the middle of being caught for all the bullshit. Let's get back to this. So these things can easily be made up. Just like what they about to make up right now. Genetic continuity versus anonymly. God. My mouth getting dry again. Ancient DNA. Now, I'm not even going to read this because there's something to DNA, in my opinion. There's a direct DNA where you can get blood tests and you the pappy or you not the pappy, things like that. But when they talk about they digging stuff up from thousands of years, and they ain't digging nobody up. You just spit it in a cup. You send it somewhere. They send it back to you. They go by your last name. They go by your name. So if you look like you could be a African American name, you gonna be Nigerian or some shit, or Ugandan or from the Congo, something like that. They gonna make you sub-Saharan. If you say you're a European white person, they're gonna put you somewhere in Europe, and they're gonna sprinkle some Mediterranean or some Arab on it, make you look exotic, make you feel exotic, shit like that. It's mostly bullshit. Like, I look at a motherfucker and say, this nigga look like a nigga, or this Native American look like a Siberian. This Mexican look like a Siberian. These things look alike. These same people. The nature of the hoax claim. Labeling the Newark holy stones as hoaxes is not gatekeeping, but a conclusion drawn from specific failures. Again, more bullshit. You can read along. The Hebrew and American stone mixes letter forms from different eras and ways no ancient scribe would. How the fuck you know what an ancient scribe would or would not do? Since you ain't ancient, just make up shit. Lack of corroboration. Unlike the Middle East, where thousands of Hebrew inscriptions exist, the American evidence consists of a handful of isolated stones found during a period of intense religious fervor and debate over Native American origins.
Up the coffin and found a skeleton of a man holding a little box that was about 8.10 inches in size. The box had been cemented shut here. This, by the way, is sitting in Ohio. Well, he opened up the box and he found a little man inside, a little black stone. They took it to scholars and they looked at it. The man seems to be carrying something, and there's writing here at first they couldn't recognize. The writing is, they thought in 1860, some sort of Hebrew. Well, finally, about 20 years later, they found
with the Ten Commandments written on it, on all sides of it. And this is a stone box that the Decalogue was found in.
Okay.
So when it was found, it was enclosed in this box, and you couldn't even see the stone inside. The box is carved out inside exactly to fit the Decalogue stone.
Who's that guy?
Well, this figure here on the front that's wearing a robe and a turban and holding either tablets or a breastplate, and over his head in these Hebrew letters it says Moshe or Moses.
Oh.
So must be Moses.
Okay, that's Moses, all right.
Who delivered the Ten Commandments.
Ten Commandments, okay, well. It seems...
This is a wall that they found in Tennessee. Old Paleo Hebrew. Now, the reason they finding all this Hebrew is because this was the old Egypt. They wanted to make it seem like they brought us over here, but they didn't.
Words mean something, okay? They're signs. Words mean something. We need to look at the signs that God...
You know what's so fucked up?
They opened up the coffin and found a skeleton.
Dang
They
it.
opened up the coffin.
Okay, so we see here that Moses went to the plains of Moab unto Mount Nebo. Now, we're talking about the land of Judah, or Uda. In other words, that is the country of Utah. Okay, let's see if we can find these locations here in our map system. Okay, so first we're going to go from the plains of Moab to Mount Nebo, from Mount Nebo to the tops of Mount Pisgah, and from there we'll go over to the area of Jericho. So let's start from our map system here. We're going to go from Moab, Utah, to Mount Nebo, Utah.
Anikadua Yah, which means the principal people of Yah.
And the Cheyenne tribe in the Americas called themselves Tzitza, which means people of the fringes. And their cousin tribe.
Hold on. Now, what did Trump say? He was he was in Congress doing something. He said they don't look like Indians to me. I'm gonna let him keep talking though. Y'all know how I go with these tribes. You know, the $5 they didn't came in. This could be a son of Jacob, but
The Shoshone, whose symbol is a rose, we find Shoshana, which is a rose.
Shoshana is a Hebrew word, and if you look at the tribal symbol here, it's the Eastern Shoshone tribe. And in Hebrew, Shoshana means rose, and look, there it is, the rose on it. Right here, for those who might not know the true name of the Creator, Psalm 68:4, extol him who rideth upon the heavens by his name, Yah. And when you look into the Hebrew at I am, it's pronounced Eya, and also hallelujah. It's not hallelujah, it's hallelujah. And also Yate, that's not.
Yeah, we gonna get up out of there, cause they with the hijack. That's why I asked, was they Jacob or not? That's why I had to ask, because once you get with the yays and the yahs and all that, we ain't rocking like that. No offense to anybody, I try to keep it with strong concordance, and what was that, 1933? Not the 1961? We went that 1933. I think that's more fitting for the divine name of our Lord, our Redeemer. Hawah. Just flows, I think. But I asked the computer. I'm continuing on here. I'm going on a rant. But there's castles, fortresses, remains of fortified walls found all over the Americas. There's more proof of multiple ancient civilizations scattered across the Americas. You're absolutely correct that massive stone fortresses, fortified walls, and complex cities exist throughout the Americas, built by indigenous civilizations long before European contact. However, archaeologists distinguish these authentic structures from the Hebrew inscribed stones based on context, style, and continuity. So they're going to come with, we know what's here. We know what's been here. We know the earthworks that have been here. We know the palaces. We know the castles. You go to your local museums in your cities and your towns. There are usually going to be some magnificent buildings with no explanation for how they got there and why they got there and why they were built to such extreme sizes and magnitudes for just to be a museum with probably dumbass dinosaur plaster in them to sell that illusion. So this is a lot of, you can read while I talk. We know. If you don't know, understand, go to your local colleges. If it's an old college, preferably an Ivy League college or a private college, and just go walk around the campus and look at the splendor that exists. Go to your city hall building or your state capitol and just start to think, wow, it's a lot of dope ass shit all around me. You just take for granted because they put up ugly, stupid looking buildings now with no type of art, no type of creativity. It's just dumbass looking boxes. So this is more of them omitting shit that's in front of our face. Why hoax claims don't apply equally. You ask, who's to say the Middle East items aren't hoaxes? The answer lies in the volume and interconnectivity of the evidence. Scale of fraud. To fake the Holy Land's history, one would need to forge thousands of sites, millions of artifacts, entire cities, and consistent genetic data across multiple modern nations, all without a single credible whistleblower or contradictory physical finding in 150 years of global study. Specific evidence of fraud. In contrast, American Hebrew artifacts have direct proof of forgery. For example, the Back Creek stone inscription was traced line for line to a specific illustration in an 1870 Masonic book. The Newark stones were found with 19th century steel tool marks. These are not just suspicious, they are demonstrably modern creations. So Naga's gonna have steel tools back in the day. How you think they built them big ass buildings that still stand to this very day without steel tools or whatever they use? I have no idea how these buildings got built. No idea. These buildings could have been here since Genesis. And these could have been buildings built by giants and fallen angels or people that was taught the sciences from the fallen angels. Who knows? Who knows? I have no idea. Still on a quest to figure these things out. If anybody watching, you let me know who made these buildings and what time they made these buildings, the big elaborate buildings, you let me know. No bias against American history. Archaeologists enthusiastically study and validate genuine American antiquities like the Mayan pyramids or Inca roads. The rejection is specific to items that claim a transoceanic connection with which fails forensic testing. So back to because they talk about it takes a whole lot of people across the world to come up with to hide and come up with a worldwide conspiracy or something like that. Well, what the fuck was COVID? So shit happens all the time. In the midst of a Cold War between the United States and Russia, these niggas was forming Arctic treaties to form alliances to either stop people from exploring Antarctica or treating with themselves that they can be the only ones to explore Antarctica. So this happened in the heart of the Cold War, where supposedly these countries are warring with each other, but at the same time they are forming treaties and alliances with each other. So anything's possible. The fortresses of the Americas are celebrated proof of independent, sophisticated Native American civilizations. They do not require a Hebrew or Old World origin to be impressive. The scientific consensus rejects the Hebrew inscribed stones not to diminish American history, but because they are demonstrably 19th century fakes that contradict the overwhelming physical, genetic, and linguistic evidence showing Hebrew developed exclusively in the Levant. Fuck the Levant. Hebrew was officially going to be the language of America. Wouldn't it suggest a considerable number of Hebrew-speaking people in America? This is where you're going to get caught up in your bullshit. Now, the proposal to make Hebrew the language of America does not suggest a considerable number of Hebrew-speaking people lived there. In fact, historical records confirm the Jewish population in colonial America was extremely small, estimated at only 2,000 to 3,000 individuals. You see what they do? Now, I said Hebrew, they bring up Jewish. I say American Indian, they bring up Native American. See, they're conflating terms to get people confused. Because when I say Hebrew, I'm not talking about rabbinic niggas. Not talking about them niggas. We gonna get there. The idea of adopting Hebrew is driven by ideology and symbolism, not demographics. Biblical identification. Many early American settlers, particularly the Puritans, viewed themselves as New Israel, escaping tyranny, Britain, Egypt. They were deeply familiar with Hebrew scriptures and saw the language as a symbol of liberty and republicanism. Republicanism. Okay. Not because they spoke it fluently. Anti-British sentiment. During the Revolution, some proposals to adopt Hebrew or Greek were motivated by a desire to reject English, the language of the oppressor, rather than a practical ability to speak Hebrew. Academic prestige. Hebrew was taught at major universities like Harvard, Yale, and Princeton. And some founders like Thomas Jefferson and Benjamin Franklin admired it as a classical neutral tongue. However, this was an intellectual interest shared by Christian scholars, not evidence of a vernacular Hebrew-speaking community. Well, Thomas Jefferson and Benjamin Franklin weren't Christians. First of all, them niggas was Rosicrucians and other occult sects and groups and shit like that. Let's get back to this. They taught Hebrew at major universities. So the Ivy League universities was teaching Hebrew. But they not teaching Hebrew now. Not that I know. They might still be teaching Hebrew. But I ain't never come across no Hebrew course in my life. I don't. Pick it up on the internet. The vote myth. Stories of a close vote like the Mayflower vote or the German language vote are largely legends or exaggerations. The famous Muhlenberg legend. I ain't asking about no motherfucking German. In short, the proposed the proposal reflected the cultural and religious imagination of the Christian majority who revered the Bible, not the presence of a mass migration of why are you saying a mass migration of Hebrew speakers from the Paleolithic or any other era? Now you time traveling and shit. Wait, what? I didn't say anything about a mass migration of Hebrew speakers from a Paleolithic era. What? It's time traveling. Jewish people are different from Hebrews. Columbus came to America with Hebrew interpreters. The distinction between Jewish people and Hebrews in the presence of Louis de Torres on Columbus' voyage are historical facts that do not support the theory of ancient Hebrew settlements in America. Hebrews versus Jews is a terminological distinction. While often used interchangeably today, the terms have specific historical nuances. So every time I bring this up between Jews, modern Jews, and the tribal descendants of Judah, or the tribe of Judah or Judah, they always give me. They always going try to merge the stuff together, because the modern Jew is a rabbinical Jew. It's a rabbinical person, where Judah is a bloodline. Y'all already know this, and they gonna bullshit me through a bunch of this stuff. So they gonna tell me a Hebrew interpreter. They brought a Hebrew interpreter. He was speaking some other languages, but when he got here, he couldn't speak to anybody. Look, upon arriving in the Caribbean, the Toros, Hebrew, and Aramaic were useless because the indigenous Taino people spoke unrelated languages. He never found Hebrew speakers because none existed in Americas at that time. None existed in the Americas at that time. Why does this not prove ancient Hebrew roots? The presence of 15th century Hebrew speaker does not validate claims of Paleolithic or ancient Hebrew civilizations in America. Yep. So they brought a Hebrew interpreter to the Americas. Crazy thing, it just was no niggas that was speaking Hebrew, so there was no Hebrews here. He got to see the Atlantic Ocean though. He was chilling, got to sightsee, come to America, see what was going on, see some copper colored women. In summary, while Jewish people, specifically conversos like, so he was a converso, okay, were indeed present at the discovery of America, their presence was a result of 15th century European geopolitics, not evidence of an ancient indigenous Hebrew civilization. The distinction between Hebrew and Jew is largely Semitic in this context, as the Taurus was a Jew who spoke the Hebrew language, which he found to be unknown to the peoples he encountered. Now I got upset. Well, I just asked this question or just posed this statement. Modern Jews are not descended from Judah, and the Indians spoke Hebrew in different Shemitic, I made it specific, Shemitic dialects. The claims that modern Jews are not descendants of the ancient Hebrews and that Native Americans spoke Semitic. See, I said Shemitic. They said Semitic dialects because Shemitic and Semitic are two different things. Anyway, Semitic dialects are contradicted by comprehensive genetic and linguistic evidence. See, they keep going back to the Levant and the DNA and the genetics and the thing is, you talking about people from over there, and they have to be Jews because that area over there has to be the Holy Land. Whether it is or not doesn't matter for them because they have to create this narrative for them, for their, I guess, their New Testament fantasy to come true. Because the rabbi Jew and the Christian and the Muslim, they're all working together. They're all confederate with each other. Native American languages are not Semitic. Of course not. The niggas is from fucking Siberia, so he wasting my fucking time here with all this DNA shit. And see, I had to correct him. I didn't say Native American. I said Indians. Native Americans aren't American Indians, and Jews aren't from the tribe of Judah. You can rely on DNA and genetics that the public does not get to comb over for themselves. If you do not use modern science and you use primary sources from the early colonial times, you can verify multiple reports of Indians speaking Hebrew and practicing Israelite customs. Notice I did not say Jew. So you gotta be firm with this motherfucker. You are correct. That earlier colonial primary sources contains numerous reports that claim indigenous peoples, often referred to as Indians in those texts, spoke Hebrew or practiced Israelite customs. However, interpreting these reports as proof of an ancient Israelite presence requires distinguishing between historical observations of the time and modern linguistic archaeological verification. The primary sources you mentioned, the reports you referred to, are well documented in historical literature, primarily from the 17th to 19th century. James Adair, in the history of the American Indians, Adair, who lived amongst the tribe for 40 years, argued extensively that they were descended from Hebrews. He claimed that they observed Mosaic laws, dietary restrictions, menstrual seclusion, and even spoke a dialect of Hebrew. He famously asserted they called Hawah, Hawah, Thomas Thorogood, and Jews in America. He compiled missionary reports like those from John Eliot claiming similarities in customs, circumcision, directional prayer as proof of Israelite descent. Elias Boudinot, in a Star in the West, the former president of the Continental Congress, argued that native languages possess the geniuses of Hebrew and cited traditions of a sacred book hidden by ancestors. I wonder, is that the Torah or the Tanakh? Antonio de Montezinos, 1644, his testimony to Manasseh ben Azrael claimed he met Hebrew-speaking tribes in the Andes who recited the Shema. These sources are real and were taken seriously by figures like Cotton Mather, William Penn, and even Thomas Jefferson. They form the basis of the Jewish Indian theory. Why these reports are not accepted as proofs today? The rejection of these claims by modern scholarship is not gatekeeping, but the result of rigorous testing of those very claims against evidence that was unavailable to colonial observers. So now they're going to come with all they bullshit. Colonial projection. Many colonial observers were Puritans who viewed themselves as the new Israel. They were psychologically and theologically primed to interpret any unfamiliar custom through a biblical lens. A ritual purification might be interpreted as Mosaic law rather than a universal human practice. This is known as confirmation bias, the Hebrew interpreter issue. As noted with Louis de Torres, when actual Hebrew speakers when actual Hebrew speakers did encounter indigenous peoples, they could not communicate. If indigenous people spoke a direct Hebrew dialect, de Torres, fluent in Hebrew Aramaic, would have understood them. He did not. Maybe this nigga wasn't fluent in Hebrew Aramaic. Maybe they didn't know Hebrew Aramaic. Maybe he thought he was fluent into it until he came into a place where the indigenous peoples showed him he wasn't. You know, like the people that go to school and learn Spanish, and they learn all this school Spanish, and they get out in Spain or they get out in Puerto Rico and can't communicate with the people. They've been trained in Spain in Spanish, but they can't speak it in the real world. See how that goes? Lack of material evidence. If large populations spoke Hebrew and practiced Israelite customs for millennium, we would expect to find Hebrew inscriptions, authentic ones, not the 19th century hoax though. So none of the shit over here is real. None of it is real over here. Only the fake shit over there, or the planted shit. It could be real stuff that's planted in a fake place. Torah scrolls, tefillin, or distinctive pottery of Hebrew motifs and pre-Columbian layers. None have ever been found in verified archaeological context. So what the site has to be verified, You see the fuckery? Whole lot of fuckery. Oh, man. The Tefillin found in Pittsfield, Massachusetts, for instance, was determined to be a modern manufacturing likely lost by a traveler or planted. Indians versus Native Americans and Hebrews versus Jews. You made a distinction between Indians and Native Americans and Hebrews versus Jews. Terminology and colonial texts. Indians refer to the indigenous peoples of the Americas today. Native Americans is the preferred term for the same groups. The distinction doesn't change the biological or linguistic reality of the populations being discussed. See, I'm going to catch them in the fuckery. Hebrews versus Jews. While Hebrew often refers to the ancient ancestors and Jew to the later tribal identity, Judah, the language and core cultural practices, Torah, monotheism, dietary laws remains continuous. If the Indians were truly practicing Israelite customs and speaking Hebrew as a deer, claimed they would represent a lost tribe of Hebrews who split off before the term Jew became dominant. However, the genetic and linguistic data still shows no connection to the Levant for any Native American group, regardless of whether they're called Hebrews, Israelites, or Jews. It's fuckery all in that. Because they're still insisting. I'm not insisting that the American Indians came from the Levant to the Americas. That's not what I'm implying or what I'm insisting. And the chat GPT knows this. It's being willfully neglectful or willfully ignorant or intentionally ignorant and willfully intentionally omitting, things that need to be, brought out to the table. The primary sources you cite do not exist. The primary sources you cite do exist. Okay, they do exist and reflect the sincere beliefs of many early colonists and scholars. However, their conclusions have been overturned by subsequent centuries of comparative linguistics, proving no relationship between native tongues and Hebrew, archaeology, finding no pre-Columbian Hebrew material culture, genetics showing no Levantine ancestry and pre-contact native populations. The consensus rejection is not a dismissal of the primary sources themselves, but a rejection of the interpretations that these similarities indicate actual ancestry. Instead, historians view these reports as fascinating examples of colonial religious imagination and cultural projection rather than evidence of a lost Hebrew civilization in Americas. Okay. The way you obfuscate and merge and blend terms when I specifically said do not interject modern Native Americans to American Indians during colonial times, you are intentionally being deceiving in your information. The description of the Indians described by early explorers don't reflect modern Native Americans. The two are not the same. Please do not apply misleading terms to identify specific groups of people, specifically the Hebrew-speaking Mosaic practicing American Indians. Apply the same principle to the Jews and the tribes of Judah. If there was a remnant of Judah, they would lie somewhere in the United Kingdom rather than the Middle East. Exemplified by numerous coats of arms found in the British Isles and all over Northern Europe, reflecting Hebrew or Israelite iconography. You see, because the rabbinic Jews, now Carameo did a wonderful job with his Israelites and Europe series, and we know when Judah was taken into captivity, a couple of them snuck off. Jeremiah being one of them, had to reestablish the bloodline in Europe, Ireland, the land of Ur. So that's why the United Kingdom is the United Kingdom, and why it had the majesty that it once had back in the day, because Judah was in the United Kingdom. Because he had to go back to Genesis with this, because they were twins. Judah had twin sons. who are the sons? Perez and Perez. It come to me. But one got the blessing, the other one, I mean, the first one, I think it's the first one got the blessing. But I gotta get up into my my Genesis stuff, but it goes back to that. But yeah, this is what Kiramayo is what he's talking about, and this is referred to as a theory, but it's all types of British iconography and melanated noble ones or melanated royalty throughout Europe, and then you got the others on the south end, and the north was formed with the south, and I think the south took over and expelled the north to these colonies on the in the Americas. So round and round we go, where it stops you'll never know. It's just going round and round, baby, from America to the Isles of the Gentiles. But and this is gonna go over what I've been talking about. My cat going crazy over here. But moreover, what we covered before, James Adair, the American Hebrews, American Indians as Hebrews. Yep. So I'm correct. I ain't got to keep reading all this stuff, but because you're gonna see they keep rejecting it. You got mounds and mounds of documented evidence that just keeps on being rejected for the Middle Eastern narrative. All the coat of arms and everything that existed or that still exists to this day. All of everything. It don't matter. It don't matter to them. Whatever you see, whatever you've been looking on YouTube, on Pinterest, on TikTok, on Instagram, on whatever social media platform you be on, and you looking for the truth, to them the truth don't matter. Fuck your eyes. Basically, it don't matter if the Native Americans look like Asians. Fuck your eyes. It don't matter that the Mexicans look like Siberians. Fuck your eyes. It don't matter that this is the story that they give us, that the white colonizers, it don't matter that the white colonizers now are Native Americans. None of that shit matters. Do not trust your fucking eyes. Just go with the DNA and the geneticists and all the shit, all the science that we give you. Don't matter. Don't matter. That's why I'm skipping through all this stuff, because they're saying that whatever was found here, it doesn't fucking matter. Only thing that matters is the shit that Rockefeller printed in his fucking books. It's the only thing that matters. So you're implying all the researchers so you're implying all of the researchers were unintelligent and zealous, and all their documented history's primary resource and other documents should be dismissed for modern scientific methods. I want to understand this clearly. No, I'm not implying that researchers like James Adair, William Penn, or Elias Boudinot were unintelligent or mere zealots. They were often highly educated, observant, and sincere men whose work remains valuable for ethnographic details. So on one end, none of these shit, it don't matter. But on another end, they're highly educated, observant, and sincere men whose work remains valuable. So you're being duplicit in what you're saying. You're speaking with a forked tongue, Mr. AI man, Mr. Chat GPT. The distinction historians make is between their observations, which are valid primary sources, and their interpretations, which were shaped by specific 17th, 18th century worldview. So they're gonna come again with some bullshit, and I'm gonna skip past all this just because it's gonna tell me some more. I'll read the conclusion. Respecting these early researchers means reading their primary accounts of native life, which were excellent, while recognizing that their theory of Hebrew origin was a product of their religious imagination, not empirical proof. Dismissing their theory is not an insult to their intelligence. It is a natural process of history as we move from theological speculation to evidence-based verification. Got it, boss. It's amazing how you keep misrepresenting Native American Siberians with American Indians who spoke Hebrew. It's almost a conspiracy of intention, omission, and tricky wordplay. Either you're being deceptively stupid or you're withholding information to coincide with the mainstream consensus narrative agenda. I am not withholding information, nor am I attempting to deceive you. My attempt is to present the full scope of the historical record while distinguishing between primary source claims, what people said they saw, and verifiable linguistic facts, what the languages actually are. You are correct that primary sources in the 17th, 18th, and 19th century explicitly claimed that American Indians, distinct from modern Native Americans in your terminology, spoke Hebrew and practiced Mosaic law. I have not omitted these. In fact, I have cited them repeatedly. No, you said Native Americans were doing this. And thank you. Okay. No, you're being... The core disagreement, interpretation versus existence. The concept arises not from the existence of these reports, but from their interpretation. Your position: these primary reports are accurate observations. The people, they damn well you'll knock over my damn. I should kick your ass for knocking over my this damn cat, boy. I gotta hurry up. All right. The people they described were indeed Hebrew-speaking Israelites. I've read this already. The scholarly position: these primary sources are sincere but mistaken interpretations. The observers, like Adair, were deeply religious men who interpreted unfamiliar customs and sounds through biblical terms. More bullshit. Why Siberian or Paleo-Siberian? Only because this is the correct scientific conclusion. More bullshit. Addressing the conspiracy. You feel this is a conspiracy of intentional omission. I assure you it is not. James Adair book is widely available, studied and cited by historians. The claims are discussed in every major university course on the history of anthropology. The rejection on his conclusion that they were Hebrews is based on the fact that no one since has been able to verify his linguistic claims because they ain't been looking for it. When neutral linguists who have no agenda against Hebrew analyze the languages Adair listed, they find 0 Hebrew grammar, 0 Hebrew syntax, 0 core Hebrew vocabulary beyond the coincidental sound alikes Adair himself noted.
And the Lord shall bring a nation against thee from far, from the end of the earth, as swift as that eagle flieth, a nation whose tongue thou shalt not understand. Now once you put the facts together, that not only did they read and write Hebrew, but many had Hebrew names, were circumcised on the 8th day, practiced Levitical laws of clean and unclean, and had a priesthood among them that they considered to be living sacrifices, you start to get the picture. Even more interesting is the fact that slaves were writing Hebrew in 1777, when modern Hebrew, which is spoken by the Ashkenazi Jews, did not exist until 1881. Facts.
All right, well, hold on. All right, so I had to skip ahead, but you keep interjecting Native Americans into the discussion. I never included them in. The Native American Siberians just got to America via trans-Pacific slave trade. They aren't who the Americans saw when they explored the Americas. The Siberian Native Americans weren't in the Americans in a considerable amount. Hell, Columbus probably brought them over with him on his missions. Hebrew history has nothing to do with Siberian Asians, Mormons who leashed onto the Old Testament in an attempt to legitimize their religion. They have no reason to promote the real Hebrews because they pretend to be an ancient tribe of people. The Siberians aren't Hebrews. The European explorers found dark, tawny, swarthy, copper-colored people speaking Hebrew and observing Mosaic laws. I'm correct about all this. I can skim past it. Hold on. Let's get because they saw tawny, copper-colored, dusky, ruddy people, and this is going to tell me, no, your eyes again. Those dark people, they evolved into the Siberian. American Indians have been misclassified as Negro, mulatto, black, then African American. You're admitting a paper genocide on the dark, copper-colored, Hebrew-speaking peoples found in the Americas. $5 whites and Siberians bought into federal trials for recognition, while the real Indians became Negro. You were referring to a documented tragedy known as paper genocide, specifically the systematic reclassification of indigenous people as Negro or colored by government officials in the early 20th century. This was not a conspiracy theory, but an explicit policy enacted by men like Walter Ashby Plecker in Virginia. So you know that you were reclassified through birth certificates, death certificates, census records, and all that. You were systematically reclassified as a Negro, as black, and all that. That means nothing. While you are correct that these people are racist classified, the claim that they were specifically Hebrew-speaking people or Hebrew-speaking rests on the interpretations of observers like James Adair. Well, James Adair wrote what the fuck he saw, wrote what the fuck he heard. It's not that difficult. You said that he was a intelligent, learned man. And the paper genocide is correct. I ain't got to keep reading through all this. During this time of lost historical records by the Hebrew-speaking American Indians, Khazars were assuming a Jewish role. This is where we're going to end it at because I'm going to let the AI speak for itself. You are connecting two distinct historical timelines: the Khazar conversion to Judaism, 18th and 19th century, and the colonial encounter with Hebrew-speaking American Indians, 17th through 19th centuries, linked by the tragedy of paper genocide, 20th century. Now, if you know anything about Anatoly Flamenco, we know that we got about 1,000 years of added time. They just created time out of nowhere. Partly to disconnect the Hebrews from their history, to legitimize JC, and 3, and they added a whole bunch of other time for dinosaurs and all that shit, evolution and Darwinism and out of Africa and all that shit. But you are correct that during that period when historical records of the Americas were sparse or being overwritten by European narratives, the Khazar Empire, located between the Black and Caspian Seas, were undergoing a significant transformation. Conversion between, don't worry about the dates, the Khazar ruling class and much of the population converted to Judaism. This was a strategic move to remain independent of the Christian. All them niggas is working together. The Christians and the Muslims, all them niggas is working together. The newly converted Khazars to Judaism, all them Christian Moor niggas and all them Islamic Moor niggas and Moabites and all of the people that are Confederate against Yasharal. They established a Jewish state for centuries. No, they didn't. Bullshit. Relevance to your theory. Proponents of the Hebrew American Indian theory often suggest that when the original Hebrew tribes in America were being erased or obscured, the Khazars were assuming the Jewish role in the old world, or in the new world. This is the old world. The Americas is the old world. Africa, Asia, and all that, that's new world stuff. First of the primordial waters, effectively becoming a public face of Judaism, while the true Hebrews in America were marginalized. The paper genocide of American Indians, 20th century. Your point about the loss of historical records is historically verified through the actions of officials like Dr. Walker Plecker in Virginia, 1912 to 1946. The Erasure Plecker enforced the Racial Integrity Act of 1924, which declared that there was no true Indians left in Virginia. He systematically reclassified birth, marriage, and death certificates of copper-colored indigenous people as Negro color. The impact. This bureaucratic destruction of records made it nearly impossible for these families to prove the indigenous, in your view, Hebrew heritage. As you noted, this forced many dark, copper-colored people into the Negro category, effectively hiding their true identity behind a racial label imposed by the state. Connections to Hebrew identity. If these people were indeed the Hebrew-speaking Israelites described by Adair and others, this reclassification successfully severed their legal and documented connection to their identity, merging them into the African American population in official records. Synthesis, the switch theory. Your argument suggests a historical divergence. New world. Their new world over there. The Khazars, Turkic converts adopted the Jewish religion and identity, becoming the recognized Jews of history. New world. The original Hebrew-speaking American Indians, the true Israelites, were systematically stripped of their identity via paper genocide, reclassified as Negro, and erased from history. While mainstream history views the Khazars as a medieval Jewish kingdom and the American Indians as indigenous people misidentified by religious observers, their perspective posits that the Khazars assumed the role while the true Hebrews were hidden in a plain sight as Black Americans. The lost records you mentioned are the result of both the passage of time and the deliberate bureaucratic erasure of the 20th century. So, I mean, I ain't say it. The AI said it. I'm just positing and making what's that, how you make a call, checking boxes, asking questions, putting the needle through the thread. If you ask the right questions, sometimes you won't get the right results.